All right. I think we are live. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me tonight. I'm just getting some stuff set up here. You know, you're not watching the Olympic opening ceremonies either. Um, Normally I have Den helping out with the moderation and stuff. He can't be here tonight. So bear with me. In between stories, I will do my best to look through the comments, and if anyone has questions, I'll try to get through as many as I can. As usual, support the channel by going to patreon.com/hement. I appreciate that. And if you leave a super chat, I will get to it in between stories. And I'm going to try to look at your comments in the middle of talking about this stuff. Listen, I know you love Den. I love Den too. He can't be here tonight. He'll be back next week. Um, so let me start out by talking about something I'm going to backtrack for a second. The last time I did a live stream, it was like Thursday of last week. Things are not looking great for Democrats. Joe Biden's still on the ticket, and within the span of a week all of that changes. So, I don't know. I felt better all week. So with that in mind, the first story I wanted to talk about tonight involves a scandal that has to do with the Southern Baptist Convention, but it ties in to Biden stepping down and Kamala Harris stepping up and all of that. So here's I've enjoyed this story because it's gone through so many different updates since I started watching the story unfold. So here's what happened. Last Sunday, President Joe Biden, as I know you know by now, he dropped out of the presidential race. He announced that he wouldn't be campaigning for office again, and he threw his support behind his vice president, Kamala Harris. She's had a fantastic opening so far. It's been an awesome week. Now, depending on how the next few months play out, what Joe Biden did could be seen as one of the most selfless acts in political history. You know, the most powerful person in the world realized his age was becoming such a liability to the point where not only was he on track to lose the presidential election, the rest of his party was going to suffer alongside him. And so for him to step down saying, I'm not your guy anymore, to read the polls suggesting that the public's not going to give you the benefit of the doubt, to understand things don't look good for your entire party. I mean, was it a selfish thing to stay in the race as late as he did? Yeah, he should have stepped down earlier, but the fact that he did it, big deal. And if you want to say it's a selfless act, like instead of a political convenience, like fine, I'll take it. You know what I mean? Um, and by the way, even though this week has been pretty incredible for Kamala Harris, there was no guarantee it was going to roll out as wonderfully as it did. Now, all that said, one of the most incredible takes on Joe Biden stepping down came from the Southern Baptist Convention, and specifically from Brent Leatherwood, who is the president of the SBC's Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, basically the public policy wing of the Southern Baptists. Okay. So he released an essay on, I believe, Sunday night, and it was all about how President Biden made the right decision for himself and America. And I want to zone in on just this little bit he says here. Today, July 21st, in an astonishing moment for American history, President Joseph Biden made the right decision for the country by announcing that he would no longer pursue his party's nomination um, for president. Yeah. Okay, that seems fine. Like, there's nothing controversial about that. And in fact, in advertising what he just said, the ERLC, Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, they actually put out a longer statement on their website. And check this out, because this is where the controversy really happened. This is Brent Leatherwood again. Not only is this a historic decision, it's the right decision for our nation. The role of president takes a heavy toll, and based on what has been apparent for some time, it was unrealistic to ask President Biden to endure another 4 years of the incredible burdens placed on the one who occupies this office. We should all express our appreciation that President Biden has put the needs of the nation above his personal ambition. Despite what some partisans will say, to walk away from power is a selfless act, the kind that has become all too rare in our culture. And like, if you read that, I mean, he gets these little jabs in there, like Biden's old, he can't really do the job anymore. But at the end, he says a pretty standard bipartisan sort of thing. Like, it's kind of rare to see selflessness in politics. It was a nice thing to say about Joe Biden. No snark. He said something nice about it, right? And all these white evangelical Christians flipped out. They went crazy because, as you know by now, many conservatives have basically made it a habit to treat anybody who only agrees with them 99% of the time as their sworn enemies. So, like, I want to be clear, in his essay, the one I was showing you earlier, it was not all praise for like Joe Biden or anyone else. This is in that same essay. Like, look at this, where he's talking about Kamala Harris. Should delegates to the Democratic National Convention confirm her as the nominee, it will be cause for considerable concern among pro life advocates and those who hold to a biblical definition of marriage. So, Kamala Harris would be horrible because she cares about women and she thinks women should control their bodies. And also, she thinks gay people are people. And that can't happen. So, like, this guy in the same essay where he's praising Joe Biden for this selfless thing he did, he's also criticizing Kamala Harris, as you would expect anyone in the Southern Baptist Convention to do. He also said things in here, I'll find it somewhere. But again, he criticized the choice of Harris. He criticized the Republican Party as well for trying to distance itself from anti-abortion extremism. He's one of these people who thinks the Republican Party watered down its stance on abortion in the party platform. And if you actually read the platform, they didn't distance themselves at all. They just couched their language in a different way. So instead of actively saying, we want to ban abortion, we want to ban IVF, we want to make sure fetuses are considered humans, they kind of hid behind language that says, the 14th Amendment supports a personhood amendment. It says fetuses are people, and we think it should be up to the states. And, if they do a national abortion ban, they didn't say those words, but they hinted that that would be the right thing to do. So Brent Leatherwood is basically criticizing the Republican Party for not going all out and saying, we want an abortion ban, contraception ban, IVF ban, and all the stuff that they absolutely still believe in. Like, the GOP is as extreme as ever when it comes to abortion. We know that. Donald Trump's VP pick, J.D. Vance, has said he opposes exceptions for rape and incest. He wants 12-year-old girls to have their father's babies if they are the victims of sexual assault. It is extreme as it gets. That is the current Republican Party. But Brent Leatherwood's like, Republicans, you're doing a bad job too. You softened your tone. And they absolutely did not. He actually said in his statement that this is an opportune time. I want to find the wording if I can. Here we go. This is what he said in that statement that was published. Meanwhile, whoa, come back. Why is that website going on? There we go. Meanwhile, this is an opportune moment for all Republican candidates to recommit to the GOP's historic stances on life and marriage, even as the current platform has diminished them. Like, buddy, they are all in against LGBTQ rights. They are all in against any kind of abortion rights, reproductive rights whatsoever. So, like, in the same statement where he's nice to Joe Biden, He's critical of Republicans for dumb reasons. He's mad at Kamala Harris for treating people as people. Like, it's not a great statement. He just happened to say one nice thing about Joe Biden. And yet, despite all of that, Christians flipped out. Okay. And what's weird about that is that no one would have expected Brent Leatherwood to say anything nice about Joe Biden, because you know what he was before he was leading the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission? He was the executive director of the Tennessee Republican Party. You cannot get redder than that. He is a Republican through and through. But considering that like 81% of white evangelicals voted for Donald Trump in the last election, and like 80% of them voted for him in 2016, the vitriol they directed at Leatherwood for daring to say one nice thing about Joe Biden was kind of incredible. Let me show you some of the stuff they said. This is a lot of these are on Twitter X. This is one of the most dishonest and cynical political statements I have ever seen. No one believes that Joe Biden dropped out due to selflessness. It's almost obscene to utter something so discrediting in a moment like this. And in case you're wondering what she's pointing to, it's just the thing he said, that to walk away from power is a selfless act. And like, even if you think Joe Biden had a political motive to walk away from it, keep in mind, he did not have to drop out. He thought he had a winning record. He thought the American people would turn in his direction, even if the polls didn't show it right now. He did not have to drop out. He earned the delegates. And yet, he was convinced that dropping out would be good, not just for his party, but obviously good for the country too. And he's right. Even if it took him a few weeks to get there, he's right. So, like, that's a true statement. And this person's like, psh, that is dishonest and cynical. She's not alone. Here's another one. This is a powerful Southern Baptist pastor as well. Despite what some partisans will say, nothing in the record indicates Mr. Biden has walked away from power as a selfless act. Nothing. How dare you say something nice about Biden? Wait, there's more. The ERLC is repeating Democrat talking points again. That is very telling. What are the Democrat talking points? That Biden's a good guy who's also old? Like, I promise you that's not on the agenda. This was a good one. Brent Leatherwood should follow Biden's lead and resign also. Like, I'm showing you a handful of crazy statements made, but these people are just saying what a lot of others were also saying online. Like, there was so much backlash against Leatherwood for saying what I didn't think was that big of a deal at all. And then, after all that, this is where it gets pretty interesting. The Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission issued another statement on Monday night. This is 24 hours after his essay went up. Check out this statement at this point. I would show you the original, but it's no longer online. But this is an article about what they said. The official statement said, the Executive Committee of the Board of Trustees for the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission of the Southern Baptist Convention has issued the following statement. In accordance with our bylaws, the Executive Committee has removed Brent Leatherwood as president. Further details as well as plans for the transition will be provided at our September board meeting. Like, that guy was shit canned. And if you have any questions, just chill out for like 3 months while we figure out a reason to tell you all. They fired this guy. And for what? We don't get a reason. We are not told it's because of what he said about Biden. But it kind of has to be, right? Like, this is an article from the Baptist Press, but look at the headline here. ERLC removes president 1 day after kind word about Biden. Like, everyone's pretty much thinking, yeah, they got rid of this guy because he happened to say one halfway decent thing about Joe Biden, which, again, I want to repeat, was not even that big of a deal. It was kind of like, yeah, it's the least you could do. It's a nice thing to say, but like, it's not that big of a deal. It's not controversial. So just to summarize so far, Leatherwood made the mistake of saying something nice about a prominent Democrat while mildly criticizing the Republican Party for reasons he did not need to criticize them for. And all of that was apparently a bridge too far for an organization that has clearly decided right wing extremism is the only path forward. But like, it's not like this came out of nowhere, though. The same critics have lashed out against Brent Leatherwood in the past. They don't like this guy. They don't like that he's the head of the ERLC because when conservatives were saying, what else can we do now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned? Hey, how about we put women in jail if they have abortions? And Brent Leatherwood's like, maybe let's not punish the women. Let's go after the doctors instead, which is still an awful take. But they're like, why don't you want to punish the women? We're Southern Baptists. You know how we feel about women. And so they don't like that he wasn't as extreme as they were on that. They also got mad. Get this. Remember last year, there was a school in, was it Tennessee, the Covenant School, where there was a mass shooting. A shooter went into the school, this private Christian school, killed several kids and some adults maybe. Brent Leatherwood has 3 children, I believe, and they all attend Covenant. Now, none of them were injured, physically injured in that shooting, but obviously that is traumatizing, not just for the kids, but for the family. Like, that could have been my son or daughter, right? And so in the wake of that tragedy, Brent Leatherwood, as a very high-ranking Southern Baptist leader, was one of the people that the news media sought out. Like, what do you think about all this? What do you wish would happen? He's still the guy they are talking to because that case is not over yet. And one of the things he said is we should have sensible gun laws in this country because my kids nearly died because we don't have sensible gun laws in this country. And he's right about that. He doesn't go as far as I would, obviously, but he wanted the bare minimum. And they got mad at him about that too. So, like, they've been out to get this guy for a while. And when he made a nice comment about Joe Biden, they went all in against him. One of his more fervent critics is this pastor named Tom Askell. Let me share with you what he wrote after Brent Leatherwood was fired. Not only is this a historic decision, it's the right decision for our convention. Notice he's echoing what Brent Leatherwood wrote about Joe Biden. Despite what some will say, for the trustees to remove Brent from this position of power is a righteous act, the kind that has become all too rare among trustees in our recent SBC culture. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Nothing symbolizes a religious group that is devoted to the patriarchy more than a giant dick. And that's what that guy is. Now, another thing you should know if you're not familiar with the ERLC is the only reason Brent Leatherwood is even in that role is because the guy who was in his position for like the decade before was a guy named Russell Moore. And he stepped away from the job after everyone came after him. Why? Because Russell Moore spent years saying, hey, we're Christians. We have values, damn it. I mean, they're all bigots, but like, we have values. And Donald Trump is not a guy who cares about our values. And you know what? He's right. Trump doesn't care about any of that stuff. Russell Moore condemned sexual abuse that was rampant within the Southern Baptist Convention. He called for racial justice in the wake of the George Floyd murder. So, like, yeah, he was also anti-abortion and anti-LGBTQ rights, but he was critical of Donald Trump. And then a whole bunch of pastors said, we are going to stop funding the Southern Baptist Convention if you don't get rid of him. And ultimately, Russell Moore resigned as well. Like, the people in this position to be like the voice for what ethics the Southern Baptist Convention ought to have, they're targets themselves, right? And Russell Moore chimed in, by the way, when he heard that Brent Leatherwood was forced out too. Here's what he said. Shameful and disgraceful. A great Christian man who lived through his children barely surviving a school shooting. Southern Baptists, how much more of this are you going to let go on? You cannot pretend not to see what is happening in your name, which is a fair point. Like, again, if you're going to get rid of this guy for saying something nice about Biden, like, what the hell is wrong with you? What do you want him to say? Do you want all Southern Baptist leaders to just sound like Trump's Truth Social account at this point? So, to answer his question, though, hey, Southern, what did he say? Southern Baptists, how much more of this Are you going to let go on? I can answer that for you. They're going to let it go on indefinitely because this is who they are. They are patriarchal bigots who prioritize cruelty over decency. They like authority figures, men, always men, not because they might be a compassionate person, but because they're willing to criticize a compassionate person, especially one who cedes power to a woman, a black woman, no less. So, like, I guess the thing that's most surprising to me is that anyone in these circles is surprised by what happened. Of course, it was going to happen. If you said, "I'm glad Biden, uh, had some compassion and decency, but I'm glad he's not going to be president anymore," they would go after you too for being too nice to him. And yet, the story is not done yet. Why? Because everything I just told you, the firing of him, that happened on Monday. By Tuesday morning, the same group had issued a brand new statement. And now it takes a whole different turn. Look at this. An early morning release from the ERLC Executive Committee says, as members of the ERLC's Executive Committee, we formally retract the press release which was sent yesterday, the one that said Leatherwood was fired. Take it back. Reverse it. Never happened. There was not an authorized meeting, vote, or action taken by the Executive Committee. Kevin Smith, not the director, but like the head of their board, has resigned as chair of the Executive Committee. So just to recap here, they had fired Brent Leatherwood because I guess he was nice to Biden, though they didn't say that. And now they're saying, nope, sorry, he's still in his job. Kevin Smith, the guy who runs our executive committee, he made that decision by himself, and now he's fired. So they got rid of the guy who made the decision to fire the other guy. And honestly, at this point, I'm just like, let him fight. Looks like no one there knows what's going on. Looks like nobody's in charge. This is their official press release on the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission's page. This is it as of July 23rd. Kevin Smith has resigned. Brent Leatherwood remains the president of the ERLC and has our support moving forward. Which, that's a wild thing to say. You know, Brent Leatherwood's like looking behind his back the entire time now. But what the hell's going on at this point? Who's in charge here? How did one guy make a decision like this and just decide this is such an important matter that I don't need to talk to the other members of my committee. I'm just going to go ahead and fire the guy. I'm going to send a memo to our communications person and say, hey, fire the dude. He did a thing. I'm just going to do that by myself. Like, what the hell is going on in your mind to do that? Now, Kevin Smith, the guy who made that decision, he also issued another statement. Let me show that to you. This is from Christianity Today, which did really good reporting on this. On Tuesday morning, after the press release was sent out reversing everything, Smith apologized in a since deleted post on X. The trustees of the ERLC steward the entity on behalf of Southern Baptists. In leading them, I made a consequential procedural mistake. The executive committee and other trustees are Christ-honoring volunteers who give much. The mistake was mine. I apologize. Now I'm going to delete this post because I apologized and that's not manly, so I got to get rid of it apparently. What strikes me here is this guy thought whatever Brent Leatherwood did was so big of a deal, he had to act immediately. Doesn't want to run this by anybody else in power. He's just like, got to act now. He was nice to Biden. And the weird thing is, at no point in any of this did anyone say Leatherwood was fired because of what he said about Biden, which means either Kevin Smith, the guy who is no longer there, decided what he said about Biden was such a big deal that he had to get rid of him by himself immediately, or there's some other scandal brewing about Leatherwood that we don't even know about yet that made this guy act immediately, and then it just turned out to be a horrible coincidence that makes everybody look bad. So this is where we are at as I make this video right now. I still don't know why they initially fired the guy, but he's back in charge and he hasn't really said anything about it. Even religion reporters can't seem to break through to figure out what the hell's going on here. And the guy who was the executive committee chair has now resigned, and he's not talking, he's deleting tweets. So just a glorious way to watch them self-destruct in real time over the course of a couple days. I am going to pause there for a second. Bear with me because I'm going to try to look through some of these comments, and I appreciate this. If I had a nickel for every time the phrase scandal in the Southern Baptist Church on this channel, uh, I know we should not make that a drinking game. It would be every week. This is an interesting one. I don't even like Kamala, but I would vote for her 100 times before I would even think of voting Trump. This is the interesting thing to me about her and Joe Biden. For the past, I don't know how many primaries now, 3 primaries since 2016, I didn't vote for Hillary. I voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016 in the primary. In 2020, I voted for Bernie Sanders. I would have voted for Elizabeth Warren, but she had dropped out by that time. And of course, this time around, I had no choice. It was just Joe Biden on the ticket. And I voted because that's what you do if you're a responsible, civic minded person. Like, none of these people are my first choices. Kamala Harris is not progressive enough for my tastes, but you have 2 choices. So I agree with the second half of this thing. Like, I'd vote for 100 times before I'd ever think about voting for Trump. I don't think I would even think about voting for Trump. But like, she's growing on me this week, especially. And I think the thing about her, which is also true about Joe Biden, is that even though their politics are not my politics because they are much more centrist than I could ever be, they do show an ability to be persuaded, to bring progressives into their umbrella, to talk to them, to be a voice in there. They don't always go vote the way I want to. Obviously, just look at Israel and Gaza. They're not taking on the progressive talking points at any point here, but they'll listen. They are not in ideological bubbles when it comes to that stuff. And to that end, you know what? I'll be a Kamala stan if I need to. She has time to get really good at this really fast, and she's going to need those progressive voters. And there are very simple ways to win them over. So I hope she does that. I think it was smart to wait until after the GOP nomination of Trump. The GOP wasted all their time bashing Biden. Yeah, I don't know if that was a coincidence or not, but it's funny. It is funny that the GOP like spent all this time trashing Biden. Then they get to their convention and they actually downplayed Biden. They didn't talk about him much at all. And then they nominated JD Vance for vice president, who was the worst pick if you're trying to get a larger slice of the electorate. And then after they do all of that, Biden, coincidentally or not, figures out, you know what? I'm done now. I'm going to go. So, like, glorious. Timing was flawless at that point. 2 questions. Who do you want Kamala to pick as her running mate, and who will she end up picking? There is an embarrassment of riches right now because a lot of the names on the short list, I like a lot of them. Like Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, he's growing on me. He's awesome. He looks old, but he's like Kamala Harris's age. But I like him. Super progressive, has done so much with a very slim majority in Minnesota. He's great, and he has like no name recognition outside of his state. So he's the sort of person that when you hear him talk, you will like him a lot. Pete Buttigieg, on the other hand, is someone who talks a great game, but everyone kind of knows who he is. I don't know if you make any gains with him, even though I like him by and large. Love Gretchen Whitmer. I don't know that they would choose 2 women on the ballot. I mean, I wish that wasn't true, but like, I think that's the thing she has going against her, but she's awesome. I live in Illinois. JB Pritzker has been fantastic. Like, you get a billionaire governor, you don't expect much, but like, he's been awesome for us. I don't want him to leave, but like, he would be fine. Not as smooth of a talker as some of these other people, but he'd be great. I've heard Josh Shapiro and Mark Kelly from Arizona as like high up on the short list. They have their problems. They are more to the center than I would like. They have certain issues that alienate me, but none of them are deal breakers in the sense that I'd be like, what? You nominated that VP? Well, I'm not voting at all. Like, they'd be fine. But again, all of these people are like all decent candidates for the role. they would all be really, really good. Who will she end up picking? I feel like she's leaning towards either Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, or Mark Kelly from Arizona, because they're governors or senators of swing states, and you want to win over those states. But if you're going to play that game, go with Whitmer. Like, why not? I don't think it's anyone I haven't mentioned yet. I would be shocked if it's anyone I have not mentioned at this point. But again, this is a fun thing to debate because I, I'm not going to be upset if she chooses any of those people. They all have their benefits. You know what I mean? So I also really like the fact that her campaign seems to be leaning in hard, not on let's protect democracy, which is true, and Biden was doing that, but on all these right wing Republicans are like silly, weird freaks, which is absolutely the way you should hammer them because they're all like these alpha males who can't handle people laughing at them, mocking them. They always want to be like leading the conversation. So they lie about Democrats. So now what have you seen all week? It's just mockery of their horrible positions. You know, JD Vance loves his couches, things like that. Like it's silly, but man, it takes a lot of attention away from whatever it is they're saying. It's fantastic. Um, what else do we have here before I move on to something else? Just checking. Oh, thank you so much for this donation. I appreciate that. Did I hear about, thanks, Lady Merlin. Did you hear about the Dallas First Baptist Church fire? Yeah, that happened last weekend too. I think last Saturday. This is the church of Robert Jeffress, who is a very prominent MAGA cultist. He is a Southern Baptist preacher, very much a Christian nationalist. And thankfully, no one got injured, as far as I can tell. No one got injured. No one died in the fire. Their church is so massive that this was an older part of their church that caught on fire and burned. Listen, they'll have enough money to rebuild. No one got hurt. That's all that matters. But I'll tell you what, the fact that a church caught on fire, as far as I can tell right now, there's no motive. It was probably an accident, but it's not like they've pinned the blame on someone. Because God, that would be horrible if this was an act of arson or something. But if this happened somewhere else, you know, all these people would say like, well, it was a sign from God, and yet didn't hear anything like that this time around, right? What other questions do we have here before I move ahead? Just checking to see if there's anything else. Man, you all are talking up a storm. Sorry, give me a second here. And I think I agree with you. Kamala has been slowly growing on me. Who knows? By the time election day comes around, I may even like her. Can you believe it's been 1 week, not even, that she's been the presumptive nominee? That's wild to me. This might be interesting too. I applied and hopefully we'll have media access at the DNC. And I'm hoping once that finalizes, I can talk to some of these secular politicians who have been doing some great work on church state issues and things like that. I like that. I need a rant channel where I can blow off some steam. Yes, I'll go on my secret channel where I say horrible things all the time. It'll be great. Okay, give me 1 second here to pull up the next story. Here we go. Den, where are you? I need you for this. Den makes my life so much easier during these broadcasts. All right. All right, I'm going to get to this. I want to talk about New Zealand. They had a very interesting thing happen this week that I did not see make many headlines on this side of the planet. But basically, on Wednesday, New Zealand released a 3,000-page report detailing the results of a 6-year investigation into it was completed by a group called the Abuse in Care Royal Commission. Basically, a top of the line, we're going to do an investigation about child abuse, the abuse of vulnerable adults who are in care of government agencies or religious agencies. And there had been so many stories festering about, vulnerable people, victims of abuse, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, that several years ago they said, fine, we're going to do an actual, real, big time investigation. Took them 6 years. They just released the findings, and the takeaways are just devastating all around. Here is the Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon. This is what he said after the report was released here. Let me show you this. This is a dark and sorrowful day in New Zealand's history as a society and as a state. We should have done better, and I am determined that we will do so. I mean, it's bad when the prime minister is saying something like that. In short, what the report found was that about 200,000 people were abused over the course of about 70 years, which was the range of this investigation from like 1950 to 2020. And they said 200,000 people have been victims of this abuse. This is in a country, New Zealand, that only has like a population of 5 million people. So that's a huge, huge percentage. And many of the organizations, state-run, faith-based, they got away with it because of this overwhelming lack of oversight. Let me show you this article from the Associated Press here, because they had some interesting things to say about all this. Here we go. If I could pull this up and get rid of all these ads. Here we go. The results were a national disgrace. This is in the report. Of 650,000 children and vulnerable adults in state, foster, and church care between those years, in a country that has a population of 5 million, nearly a third endured physical, sexual, verbal, or psychological abuse. Many more were exploited or neglected. Further down here, the figures were likely higher. Complaints were disregarded and records were lost and destroyed. These gross violations occurred at the same time as New Zealand was promoting itself internationally and domestically as a bastion of human rights and as a safe, fair country in which to grow up as a child in a loving family. Like, holy crap. Even no one's reading this report and saying, nope, fake, it's all lies. They're all like, we've missed this. We needed to do better. We failed everybody. One of the other things they found in the report is that they calculated the average cost of abuse for survivors. Like, if you were a victim of sexual or psychological or whatever abuse, financially, what did that cost you? Like, reparations wise, what did that cost you? And they calculated it to be about $508,000 in US dollars, I should say. Like $500,000 is what they said. This is the cost of healthcare these people needed, suffering, opportunity costs, premature death if people either took their lives early or didn't live as long because they were suffering for other reasons. Horrible. Now, what is the government going to do about this? Well, they said we'll offer a formal apology in November. I'm not sure why they're waiting till November. I'm sure there's a reason for that, but they're going to offer a formal apology. I don't know what that's going to really do, but okay. The commission also made 138 recommendations. Like, here's how we can move forward from this now that we've documented all these horrible things. One of the recommendations was pay the victims. Like, give them the money that you took away from them because of this lack of oversight. And we don't know if the government's actually going to go through with that. That's something I'm sure will be debated over the next several months. Now, there was another thing I wanted to show you as well. Let's talk about religion specifically because why not? I want to talk about that. Here's what the report found about the larger religious groups that were involved in care. For example, the Catholic Church. One of the things they found is that the Catholic Church failed to address or prevent abuse. No surprise there. They actually said as many as 40. Oh, let me show you this. This is from a Catholic news outlet, Crux. The report said as many as 42% of those in faith-based care by all denominations were abused. 42% of people who thought they were going to be cared for by a religious institution were abused. The Catholic Church in New Zealand itself said in 2020, when they were speaking with the commission, that accusations of abuse had been made against 14% of its New Zealand clergy during those 70 years. 14% of priests and other Catholic leaders were accused of abuse. At that point, when it's 14%, you cannot blame one bad priest, one bad apple. No. The whole orchard is rotten, right? This is not a single individual. This is not a handful of priests. This is not one era when the Catholic Church did wrong. Like, it is systemic. And of course, with the Catholic Church, this has been happening worldwide for a long time. Like, every country that investigates the Catholic Church and all the dioceses, they all find the same basic thing. Like, don't leave your kids alone with the priest, right? In fact, according to the report, several priests who were convicted, not charged, not accused, convicted of sexual abuse, they were sent by the church to Australia or Papua New Guinea. Basically, they were allowed to start fresh in a place where their crimes were not known. How disturbing is that? This is what one person who, I want to get his name right here, Arun Soma, who is an advisor for the commission, said all this. Here we go. Soma said New Zealand's care system is broken. Survivors want to see a total overhaul and fundamental change to ensure that this national catastrophe does not continue. He also said faith-based institutions should exit the business of care. Wow. And in their pastoral care, adopt national standards and transparent complaint processes. That is a bold statement to make. Either get out because we can't trust you to handle the most vulnerable people in our society. But if you're going to care for them, since we can't ask you to have any standards, adopt ours and have a way for people to complain that is transparent so that we know you're actually taking care of people. Like, that's the sort of thing you hear from atheists, not from someone working for the government. So that's interesting. Now, in response to all this, Catholic Church officials said they're reviewing the report and they will respond after they're done reading it. All 3,000 pages. Like, I'm sure they will. Now, that's the Catholic Church. The other group that was investigated specifically were the Jehovah's Witnesses. And they did not fare any better. In fact, the Jehovah's Witnesses actually went to court to try to stop the 64-page section about them from being made public. And the court said, yeah, no, it's definitely going to be made public. Like, they just lost that battle like last week. And so we got to see the 64-page report into the Jehovah's Witnesses. And let me show you some of the stuff they did not want you to see. I'm going to skip around here because it's 64 pages, but look at this in the report. This is, again, from the report about the Jehovah's Witnesses. Several factors within the faith increase the risk of abuse occurring during the period, including the status of elders, the power and influence they exercise, particularly over children and young people. The faith had high barriers to the disclosure of abuse, making it more difficult for individuals to say anything. These barriers included, included the inferior position of women within the faith. Let's just pause there for a second. They see women as below them, which means if a woman comes forth with an allegation that she is being abused, they just wouldn't take it as seriously. How damning is that? The barriers included rigid disclosure processes. Like all this paperwork you have to do to be taken seriously. The fear of being shunned and the relative disconnection from non-Jehovah's Witnesses, which is a process called disfellowshipping. People said, if I speak out against this, I could be kicked out of the witnesses. And if I get kicked out of the Jehovah's Witnesses, if they disfellowship me, their rule is that members of their group cannot have communication with you. Like, you are shunned. It is a horrible, horrible thing. Maybe Owen, the Telltale Atheist, he's made a lot of videos about this. But if you are ever eager to go down a rabbit hole, go search for the term disfellowshipping, and you will hear some horror stories about the trauma that it inflicted on people. They were separated from their families. Maybe a child left the Jehovah's Witnesses, and at some point, they grew up, they had kids, and they cannot show those kids to the grandmother because grandmother's still a JW. So, like, they literally have no connection with their families. So anyway, all of these things likely prevented or delayed victims from disclosing abuse. There was also inadequate vetting of elders and insufficient training in preventing or responding to abuse. Like, that's just disturbing. All of these things were making it worse. One thing you didn't see in that particular paragraph, but they mentioned this elsewhere in the document, is the existence of the two witness rule that the JWs have in place. And what that means is, if someone says, I've been a victim of abuse, church elders are basically taught, yeah, well, no one cares. Unless there was another person who can admit you were abused as well. Gotta have two witnesses to the abuse. But think about how messed up that is, because in most of these situations, it is the victim and it's the abuser. And if all you've got is the victim's words, well, that's only one witness because the abuser's not going to testify against himself. And so in a lot of cases, there were not two witnesses. So a lot of the allegations were just ignored. So the report pointed out that the two witness rule also made it harder for people to report abuse. This is another section. This was surprising to me. This is also in the 64-page report here. The Jehovah's Witnesses' approach to this inquiry and to its activities was premised on the basis that no children or young people were ever in its care. Just sit with that one for a second. Like, the commission wanted to speak with the Jehovah's Witness leaders, and Jehovah's Witnesses came into it saying, you're investigating abuse in care. Well, guess what? We never took care of anybody. We didn't have any young people that we were watching over. We don't run a daycare. So, like, hands off. Stay away from us. And the thing is, no, they got young people in their care. Just because it's not like a formal daycare doesn't mean they don't offer care for vulnerable people. Doesn't mean they don't take care of kids under their umbrella. But they just acted like, you shouldn't even be investigating us. What are you doing? And as this report says, the ongoing failure of the faith to recognize that kids and young people were in its care gives the inquiry concern about the faith's overall approach to the safety of children and young people in its care. So that's damning. There's one more part I want to show you in this report about the Jehovah's Witnesses. It involves, like, think about this. In the case of trying to investigate what's going on with the witnesses, they spoke to a lot of victims. They spoke to a lot of survivors of abuse. And one of the people they spoke to gave them very detailed information. And because her name is in the report, I'm going to use it here. I want to show you her story because it's really scary. I'm going to take a drink really quick while I show you this. But I just want you to read through this really quick. Number 65. It's about a woman named Jasmine Grew. One second here. Jasmine Grew told the inquiry that she had disclosed abuse to her mother in 1989 when she was 12 years old. Her mother told the elders of the congregation, as she was expected to do, but she's a woman. Soon after, at a faith meeting, an elder came up to Jasmine and said, "We'd like to speak to you, 12-year-old girl, in the back room." And Jasmine says, I went back into the back room, and the elders, male, were there. I had no support, no friend, no mother, nothing. My mother did not know at the time what was happening. And that's just part one. This report goes on later in the thing to give us more about Jasmine. Jasmine Grew said, "They put the blame on me. They said I was wearing seductive clothing." She's 12. I was aged from 5 to 8 at the time he was sexually abusing me, but they said she was wearing seductive clothing. Jesus. And wait, there's more here. Look at number 140 in the same report. Do you know how long of a rabbit hole I went reading through this stuff? Oh my God. Witnesses described their experience of judicial committees as emotionally and psychologically abusive in and of themselves, particularly after they had been sexually assaulted or abused. As a 12-year-old, Jasmine Grew was questioned by 3 male elders after she disclosed sexual abuse. So what happened in that back room when she went there? I went into the back room and the elders were there. Okay, we already went through that. They were asking the worst questions you can imagine for someone who was just 12 years old. They asked me, was it hard? As if the abuser's penis wasn't hard, then it must not have been abuse. She's 12. They wanted to know everything. Their questions were inappropriate. At that age, it was a terrifying experience for me. It seemed as abusive as the sexual abuse itself. I was honest, and I told them everything because I had to be honest. I was fearful of the consequences of Armageddon. The 2 words that come to me still now are humiliation and embarrassment. The elders were very intimidating. They made no attempt to support or comfort me in this process. So, her story was sadly typical. JW leaders took care of abuse by talking to minors without their parents present, then used religious threats to get them to shut up about it. And it worked. In her case, that abuse remained a secret for decades. One of the other things this report pointed out, look at number 172 right here. I'm going to show you. The inquiry has not seen any evidence of the Jehovah's Witnesses referring sexual abuse allegations to police during the 70-year period. They didn't report any of this to secular authorities. Just disgusting. I want to show you one more thing about this, which is that I said this is a 3,000-page report. Well, one of the sections was about the future. Now that the investigators have all this information on what happened, why it happened, and all that, what should they do about it now? So there was a whole section about the future. And they offered recommendations. And I just want to show you, what the recommendations are for religious institutions, because obviously they don't have much that they're allowed to do. You can't tell the Catholic Church, you are forced to do the following. They don't have that authority because religion. And so this is the recommendations they give for the religious organizations specifically. Check this out. Recommendation number 3, public acknowledgments and apologies for historical abuse and neglect in the care of the state and faith-based institutions should be made to survivors. Who should be apologizing here? Well, let's see. The Pope should make a public apology and acknowledgement for the abuse and neglect in the care of the Catholic Church. The Archbishop of Canterbury. The moderator of the Presbyterian Church of New Zealand. The chief executive officer of each Presbyterian support organization. General of the Salvation Army. The overseeing shepherd. And the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. All of you, can you all just say you're sorry? Because that's the only thing we can ask you to do. It's a recommendation. Even if they said that, what is that going to accomplish? I mean, I'm not the victim here. I'm not a survivor. So look, if it brings some sort of closure to the people who are victims of all this, then fine, please apologize. But right now, it seems like many of these religious institutions are just trying to wipe their hands clean of all of this. Now, in addition to asking them to apologize, the faith-based groups were also asked to consider working with an agency that actually deals with safety, or maybe work with oversight bodies, but they can't force the religious groups to do that. So there's no teeth to that. I mean, I think if anything, the big takeaway from all this is you're not going to convince the Catholic Church to do the right thing. They never have. So publicly shame them. That's what this report does. it publicly shames the Catholic Church, the Jehovah's Witnesses, all these organizations that were overseeing care, and just allowed this abuse to fester. That may have a bigger impact than anything else. Just putting their names out there saying these groups are bad for you. This is what they did. Here's the documentation if you dare to read it. Like, people should know their families may not be safe in a faith-based environment, and their leaders have a long-standing habit of denying that abuse even exists. Like, it's better to avoid religious groups entirely than put your kids at risk. So I don't know what this report will accomplish, but if nothing else for the religious groups, it at least blasted them publicly, which is nice. You have to see that. Even if no arrests are getting made right now or anything, it's important to put it out there that people are worse off because they put their lives, their kids' lives, under the care of these religious institutions. Okay, gonna pause for a bit. Let me scroll up and see what I missed here. I see you're having some drama. Back to the question I mentioned earlier, will I go live at the DNC? I don't know, because I don't know what my wireless/media capabilities will be. So not going to promise that right now. Might have to go there, see what I'm working with, and then we'll go from there. What else do we have here? New Zealand's last prime minister was the best. Too bad she retired. Jacinda. She was lovely. And honestly, I mean, I remember just from a distance watching the excitement when she stepped in and was on track to become the prime minister. And I feel like I'm seeing that right now in the United States as well. So that's exciting. Because it makes people excited about politics again, seeing someone who looks like you, acts like you, talks like you. There's something refreshing about that. What else we got here? The government should make these groups pay victims or lose their taxpayer money. I don't have an answer to this. I don't know what authority or power the government has to do any of these things. Obviously, they do have the power to decide if victims deserve compensation, but I don't know what the status of that is as far as the political debate goes. What other questions we got here? Scrolling through this, I see you're all fighting in the comments. Very nice. Sorry, I had to ban one person. I think that fixed the problem. Double checking. I'm going to get to the next story in a second. Okay, give me one moment to... Oh, you're going to like the next couple. All right, let me take a drink here really quick. I got a few more stories here I wanted to get to before I was done. Okay. I want to show you this headline I saw on a local news channel's website. And tell me what you think about this. FFRF, Freedom from Religion Foundation, sends 3 letters to Rusk Independent School District in Texas to stop student-led prayers. I saw that and I was like, wait a minute. I know the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and that doesn't sound like something they do. Why would they stop student-led prayers? Because the church-state separation argument forever has been, we don't want teachers praying in the classroom. We don't want coaches coercing students to pray. But if students want to pray on their own, if students want to gather in a group and pray together, that's fine. They have the right to do that. So I was surprised. Why would FFRF be trying to stop student-led prayer? And when I read the article, I didn't really get many answers. Let me show you some more. Like, again, this is the beginning of the article, and this is what the televised segment also said. Over the past 7 months, FFRF sent 3 letters to Rusk ISD asking the district to stop their student-led prayers before football games, claiming they're unconstitutional. And later on, they even quoted a lawyer from FFRF, or a legal fellow, Sammy Lawrence. It violates the First Amendment. Even if a student is the one delivering the prayer, it still violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. And like, I'm not a lawyer, but if a student is praying before a football game, I don't know why that's unconstitutional. So I read through that article many, many times, and I'm like, what is it that they're actually fighting against? Because when I read the article, when I watched the segment on YouTube, I'm like, I'm not getting an answer here. No one is telling me what they're mad about or what the student did, because that would give me a better idea of what's going on. And on top of that, the superintendent of the district had also issued some sort of response that was very Trumpy. And this is what this guy said as well. Superintendent Gray Burton recently posted to his personal Facebook page addressing the foundation's request. The post read, "If we want America to be great again, then we can't let groups or individuals continue removing God and Jesus from the fabric of our society." And I rolled my eyes, but again, listen, if atheists are overreaching, then it's not a good look for us. So this is where I was when I read that article. So I reached out to FFRF and I'm like, what the hell's going on? What are you people doing here? And then they shared with me the letters they had sent to the school district. And then I read the letters. And then I realized, oh, I figured out what was actually happening. The news reporter who published that article and whoever wrote the headline, they just weren't telling anybody the actual story. Like, in their effort to make the headline clickbaity, they just totally ignored the substance of what was going on here. So I'm going to share with you the actual substance of what is happening, okay? So let's talk about letter number 1, okay? Letter number 1, here's what happened. Last December, FFRF sent a letter to the district because they learned that a student had delivered a prayer, yes. It was over the loudspeaker before the homecoming game began. And I just want to show you this. This is the letter FFRF sent. Look at the date, December of 2023. This is their legal fellow, Sammy Lawrence. And she actually has a copy, the transcript rather, of what the prayer over the loudspeaker said. And like, I'm not going to read all this, but just glance. It's Lord, Lord, God, God, God. Like, it is very clearly a religious prayer. You hear this in church. You're not supposed to say this over a loudspeaker, right? I looked for the video, by the way. I did not find video of this game or this prayer, but this is what it said. And this was interesting, too. We just ask you to touch in our community. Touch Texas right now. If we ever need you, God, we need you right now. America needs you. We need you, God. You see all the war that's going on. We just ask you to have your way in protection right now, God. Have your way right now in Jesus' name. Yeesh, that's creepy. You see the football prayers right now? We ask you to touch each and every one of them. God, I rebuke the devil right now. God, we just ask you to touch the cheerleaders. Please don't. Touch the band students. Well, all right, they don't get much. Touch the drill team right now. Have your way, God. Have your way, God. And we say yes to your will, God. Yes to your way. I don't know why I'm reading this. It just makes me laugh. But also, it's totally inappropriate. This is not what you... I mean, again, if a student did this by themselves before a game, who cares? If the football team, the members of the team decided to do this in a huddle before the game, it doesn't matter. It's fine. Be weird. It's not a big deal. But when the school says, all right, kid, you can use a loudspeaker and broadcast this to the entire stadium, now it's school sanctioned prayer. That's the problem. That's why FFRF wrote about it. And they were right to call it out because that's illegal. Like, right? Obviously, that's illegal. It was not a private Christian prayer. This was a school sanctioned prayer. Okay. So in this letter, it actually says, look at this. They actually cited a Supreme Court decision. Like the prayer practices in Santa Fe, the prayers delivered at the Rusk High School football games are inappropriate and unconstitutional. Not only is the school, and thus the district, showing favoritism towards religion and coercing participation in these prayers by holding them during school-sponsored events, but it is also providing the prayer giver with the PA system needed to impose these prayers on attendees. Yeah, like if a kid said, hey, I'm a Satanist, I want access to the loudspeaker because I want to send some kind words about Satan to look over our team and touch the cheerleaders, they would not give that student access. So obviously, religious favoritism, it's unconstitutional. Sammy was right in telling them all this. And now, if the district's defense was, well, they let that football coach in Bremerton do it. He prayed at midfield after games. But guess what? Even the Supreme Court, in that horrible opinion, pretended that that guy was praying privately after games. And so this is not an apples to apples comparison because they're now using the loudspeakers, right? Those prayers that Joe Kennedy did, they were not publicly broadcast or recited to a captive audience. So, sensible demand. And you know what the district did when they received that letter? Nothing. They did not respond to it at all, pretended it never happened. So then things got worse. And this was not in the news article, but I found this out this week as well. It turns out in April of this year, the Rusk Independent School District posted an image on Facebook where they were basically saying, hey, if you're looking for a job, we are hiring. And there's nothing wrong with that. School districts do that all the time. Let me show you the ad they posted and tell me what you think about this. Rusk ISD, where you have big school opportunities, but small school feel. And whatever, all of this, just glance through it. It looks fine. If you want to be a teacher, you want to work there, administrative side, whatever, it's all good. They're saying we have good incentives, competitive salaries, all of that's fine until you get to the very, very last part here. Look at what they're advertising. Strong Christian faith-based community / traditional values. The grammar is off there. I'm not sure why there's a hyphen there. Strong Christian faith-based community traditional values. Is that how you read that? Maybe that's how you read that. What is that supposed to mean? Why is that an incentive for someone to apply for a job there? Does that mean if you're not Christian, we don't want you? Muslims need not apply. Atheists need not apply. Is that what that means? If they are saying we have Christian values, well, what are Christian values? Does it mean you're bigots toward LGBTQ students? Because I'll be honest, I've lived in the US for years now. I don't know what Christian values mean because only time we ever see Christian values mentioned, it's usually someone like J.D. Vance saying how he wants to control women. So none of this is helpful. Like, what are they trying to do with this ad? I have no clue. So guess what FFRF did? They sent another letter. And look at the date on this one. This is April 25th, after that was posted. And this time, here's what they said in this letter. We write to request that the district cease illegally seeking out and favoring Christian job applicants in violation of both the Constitution and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Yeah. And look down here as well. When a public school district specifically seeks out and preferences job candidates who are Christian, it displays blatant favoritism toward religion over non-religion and Christianity above all other faiths. It is squarely unconstitutional for a public school to prefer applicants of a particular religion. Yeah, absolutely. Sammy is right again. So guess what happened after FFRF sent that letter in April? Nothing. Did not get a response at all. So we still have a problem. And like the school district's just acting like they can't hear anything. Okay. And then we get to June. So now it's graduation. And I'm going to play a clip for you here because here's the deal. I guess the top 5 members academically of the graduating class, they all get special roles at graduation. Maybe they give a speech, something like that. Well, if you're ranked number 5, apparently your job is you get to deliver the prayer at graduation. Let me show you that clip right here. It's short, but here you go.
At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce our 5th ranking graduate, Madison Downs, who will deliver our invocation.
Please bow your head and pray it with me.
Okay, so then she went on to deliver a standard Christian prayer. Thankfully, she did not say, hey, God, please go touch all the cheerleaders like the football player guy did. But it was still, I'm going to show you FFRF's third letter because they had They had the prayer. And you could see again, there's a lot of, dear Lord, first I want to say thank you, Lord. Thank you for giving us something that makes saying goodbye so hard to do. I pray, Lord, right now, Lord, I pray, I pray, I pray. I don't care. Here's the thing. If they just said, hey, this is a student who is very gifted academically, we're just going to give her the stage for 2 minutes and she could say whatever she wants. Wink, wink. And the school did not see her script in advance. She could say this and probably get away with it. But the fact that they said she's going to deliver the invocation, like, this is baked into the graduation. This was supposed to be there the whole time. And again, this is not something I feel they would let some Satanist, atheist, Muslim get away with. So this is why FFRF sent a third letter. And again, they basically said, besides the fact that courts have repeatedly struck down school-sponsored prayers, specifically at graduations, it's also a slap in the face to the non-Christian graduates and their families. I mean, they deserve a celebration free from religious propaganda. And by the way, none of that would change if the students requested that. Like, you don't get to vote on whether we get to violate the Constitution. You know, you don't get to do it just because a majority of people in the community want it. So in the third letter, what did Sammy say in this one? She cited the transcript of the entire thing, and I will show you this letter once again. It's a long one, but they filed an open records request. We want to know all about how this graduation came together, any scripts you got in advance. We want proof that you knew that this was going to be prayer. It makes no difference how many students want prayer or wouldn't be offended by prayer. The courts say you're wrong. Like, all of this is true. It's a lot of legalese. But the point is, the courts are on FFRF's side. Okay? So this time, they sent that letter in June, and this time the superintendent responded. This is Gray Burton. He responded finally to this letter in June, a month ago. And this wasn't made public until recently, but like, he wrote, and he said, you've asked me for all this stuff this past year. Well, let me start by talking about the graduation. Look at this. Look at look right here. Each student speaker at Russ High School earned their opportunity to speak. They're not required to speak. They can say no, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. I don't care. Number 5 ranked student delivers the invocation. That's just the way it is. He's admitting they're breaking the law when he says that, because the invocation should not be part of the graduation program. Okay? Then he goes on, because now he's mad. You have sent letters claiming the district is in violation of the Constitution by allowing a student to offer a prayer at football games. This accusation is false and offensive. That student is some student in a club. He asked if he could pray at our football games. We let him do it. He speaks from his heart in the moment. Allowing a student volunteer to pray is completely within the law when the prayer is not pre-planned. No, it's not. You know how I know that? Because you would never see that happen with a non-Christian student. The only reason they let that kid take over the loudspeaker is because they knew what he was going to say, or they knew the gist of what he was going to say. It was going to be a prayer. I don't care that it wasn't scripted in advance. It was a prayer. Then what about that Facebook post about discriminatory hiring? This accusation is absurd and baseless. Look at this. When they say strong Christian faith-based community, traditional values, this is a description of the community in Rusk, Texas. It is not describing the school district. I could state country music is the music genre of choice in the Rusk community, and that is also a fact. It does not mean country music fans will be the only people considered for employment, which is a BS argument because, one, they didn't say that in the job description. You know why? Because it's irrelevant. But also because we know what they're trying to do when they say Christian values. Like, there is an implication that Christian and traditional, those are synonymous with good. Like, he never explains what values he thinks are Christian values. And then after explaining all that, here's what he says. Okay, I could understand a layperson not knowing the law, But as an attorney, you should. I can assure you that Rusk ISD will continue to allow prayer at our football games, graduation, and any other event we choose that is allowable and in accordance with statute. Like, I've never seen an arsonist get up and say, here's the match I'm using. Like, this guy is admitting to the crimes. I can also assure you, I will not respond to every letter you write out of ignorance that accuses the district of operating outside of the law anytime Christianity or Jesus is mentioned. I have been an educator for approximately 30 years and a Christian for longer. Just because I choose to serve in a rural East Texas town, don't assume I don't know the law or how to operate within its boundaries. So basically, he's blaming FFRF for going after some rural Texas farm boy. Like, don't you... You think I'm too stupid to understand how the law works? And meanwhile, he's like, let me show you how I'm breaking the law. This guy. And guess what? He didn't stop here either, because just in the past week, let me show you what else this guy did. On Facebook, this is like a week ago. This is what 2 weeks ago. This is what the school district posted on its official Facebook page. Staff returns on August 5th. Students return on August 12th. We're going to give it all we got. Here's 20 days of prayer. Here's who you should be praying for on every day in August and July, apparently. Like, pray for athletic coaches. Pray for technology staff. Like, pray for everybody. Like, now they're just rubbing it in everyone's face. And then the same dude on his personal Facebook page, I don't know the date of when he posted this, but this is why we're finding out about all this now. He has since either deleted this post or made it private, because it used to be public. You could see the globe right there. But look at what he says here. I made the he's back to committing arson and holding up the match. I made the decision 3 years ago to allow student-led prayer at our home football game. He's calling it student-led prayers instead of a moment of silence. This change was something our community and school board supported wholeheartedly. Since December, I've received 3 letters from FFRF claiming it was unconstitutional to pray at the games, and they wanted to know how I plan to stop it from occurring in the future. I had several things come to mind that I would like to say to this group, like, I hope you enjoy your permanent vacation at the only place hotter than Texas in August. Hell, he's saying hell, but I decided against it because he's a good old farm boy. I simply told them we would continue to have prayer anytime we want, yada, yada, yada. Earlier today, we posted 20 days of prayer on our district Facebook page, and I expect to receive another letter from this group. Regardless of their continued efforts to keep us from praying, we will not stop. Notice the we. They're trying to keep us from praying. We will not stop. What does that mean? He's saying we, everyone in this school district, is Christian. That's what that implies. That's what the pronoun means. If they studied pronouns, they would know that. We want protection and blessings for our students, staff, and community. We want yada, yada, yada. Why would we turn to anyone but God? If we want America to be great again, we can't let groups or individuals continue removing God and Jesus from the fabric of our society. We are letting these moments of silence become total silence. You know he wants to run for something here. And the results are evident in our country. It's time to bring God back to the White House. Joe Biden is Catholic. The schoolhouse, the courthouse, that's illegal, and our own house. Oh my God, I'm done with this. Bring God back. Hashtag bring God back. Unbelievable. This guy's just confessing to the crime over and over. Like, okay, so he has made it clear he wants to shove Christianity into his school district. And it seems like polite requests by FFRF are not going to change his ways. Now, Texas has a law that allows students to pray at public events, but like even that law comes with limitations. Like, you can't limit it to just Christians. The district has to issue a disclaimer that it's not endorsing what's being said. But like even the Texas law doesn't allow what is happening at this school district right now. Christianity is just like given a green light with the explicit support of the district's administrators. And so with that in mind, let me just take you back to the article that started all this, because I'm still mad at the media here. This is what I read. FFRF sends 3 letters to Rusk ISD to stop student-led prayers. No, not even close to what happened. None of this was student-led prayer. It was school-sanctioned Christianity. It is illegal. FFRF politely told them, hey, what you're doing is illegal, so stop it. And the district superintendent's like, how dare you make fun of a rural farm boy? Just because you think I'm dumb doesn't mean I don't know anything. I don't know what we're talking about anymore. Now, the obvious question, what happens now? Well, it's very clear the district is not going to stop doing this stuff. So a lawsuit is within the realm of possibility. FFRF did tell me the only reason they acted on any of this is because someone in the district contacted them about these violations. Like a community member got in touch with them. But someone has to have legal standing to go after the district, and it is asking a lot to ask some member of the community who deserves to remain anonymous, because this isn't about them. It is asking a lot for them to say, I'm going to file a lawsuit, even if it's free with FFRF's help. You're asking them to paint themselves as a target in a rural community in Texas. That is a hard ask. In a place where Christian values are everywhere, that tends to mean death threats against anyone who tries to push the district in a place of to a place of religious neutrality. So I don't know what happens now. I just know these letters aren't doing the trick. The superintendent doesn't care. So we'll see what goes on. Okay, going to pause for a bit. What have I missed? Oh my God, you're all talking way too much. What do we got going on here? Skimming. I see you were talking about the creepy prayers. I would love for a student to deliver one of these prayers if they're just opening the door to anyone who wants to pray. Go pray to the flying spaghetti monster. Pray to Satan. See what happens. Someone is asking 5th ranking. I think what that means is if you're taking like honors classes, advanced placement classes, baccalaureate classes, you might have a higher GPA. And there's a way a lot of schools rank kids by GPA and who's the smartest student in the class, which really means who knows how to play the game the best. I will say a lot of big public high schools have gotten away from doing that in recent years. They just, why are we ranking everybody? If you're good, let's reward you for being a good student. What else do we have here? Did I miss anything else? By the way, this is not part of this story. I've spent the past couple days working on a couple of stories that are not reported anywhere else. It's not commentary. It's stuff I haven't seen anywhere. And I'm not quite ready to go live with it yet. I should be ready to go by like Monday. The 2 stories are just insane, and I cannot wait to talk with you about them next week, hopefully. But if you are curious about them, if you go to, I don't have Den to create the banner for me. If you go to friendlyatheist.com, you can subscribe to that newsletter for free. And when those stories go live early next week, I think, I'm just telling you, I've spent a lot of time working on those 2 stories because they just struck me as totally bananas and bonkers. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And I'm just waiting to hear back from a couple people if they want to respond to me in time before I publish those pieces. So next week, if you're curious. Okay, I got 2 more stories for you here. Let me just let me take one more sip here before I start. Okay. I'm going to give you an update on a story that I covered on this channel months ago, but it's a happy ending, so you will appreciate this. The Satanic Temple has just settled a lawsuit they filed against a school district in Tennessee because the school district would not allow them to properly run their after-school Satan clubs. And again, I've made a video on this in the past, so I'm going to try to run through all the obstacles they put in their way, and then I'll tell you what the settlement looks like, okay? Basically, I'm going to show you a Facebook post from the Satanic Temple. This is from, what's the date on this? December of last year. That's how long this has been going on. But check this out. This is Chimney Rock Elementary School. This is in the Memphis Shelby County Schools. And you can see After School Satan Club coming to Tennessee. Hey, kids, let's have fun at After School Satan Club. What do you do at After School Satan Club? Science projects, community service projects, puzzles, games, nature activities, arts and crafts, science. Very nice. And basically, the reason they do this is because some elementary schools have what's known as a good news club, which is a Christian propaganda club. And basically what the Satanic Temple is saying is, well, if you're going to allow a Christian club to meet after school, to meet with kids, well, then we want to offer the same opportunity for parents who say yes to us. And so these clubs only launch in schools that have a good news club. And this school did. And so there was interest. And so the Satanic Temple decided to launch a club here. Shouldn't be a big deal. You sign some paperwork, you should be good to go. And just to reiterate, these clubs are not indoctrination clubs. They do not tell kids Satan exists. They're not there to promote satanic beliefs or Satanism or anything like it. It's about free inquiry and science. It's a science club that has cute logos. You know what I mean? As far as I can tell, there's only like 4 or 5 of these clubs in the country. There's not a lot of them. Okay. Now, when they started to launch this club, what happened, I'm just going to skip down here. The school district got so mad about it, they literally held a press conference. I'm not going to play this for you, but look at the headline on this Facebook post. Memphis school officials address After School Satan Club. They literally held a press conference one day saying, listen, if we have to allow them, we will, but we don't want them here. They said, quote, Satan has no room in this district. They quoted from the Bible. This is the school board chair. She later referred to the Satanic Temple and After School Satan Club as the enemy. The interim superintendent at that press conference said she was duty bound to uphold board policies, state laws, and the Constitution. But let's not be fooled, she said. Let's not be fooled by what we have seen in the past 24 hours, which is an agenda initiated to ensure we cancel all faith-based organizations that partner with our school district. What the hell is she talking about? No, if they want to say no to the satanic group, then the only legal option they had is shutting down all after-school clubs, all faith-based clubs. But that's not what the Satanists were asking for. They just said, well, you allow a Christian group at your school, just do the same thing for us. And these people flipped out, right? And also, by the way, at that press conference, a school board member said the board would explore legal alternatives. Let me show you this. This was quoted in a local news outlet. Here we go. School board member Mauricio Calvo, who represents the district that contains Chimney Rock, said the board would explore legal alternatives to mitigate the situation. What are the legal alternatives? You can't, there's nothing to mitigate. Just let them meet. It's fine. So all this happened a while ago, right? But then when that first meeting date rolled around, they were able to do it, but all the future club meetings, it was unclear whether they would be allowed to meet once a month as they wanted. And it looked like after that first meeting, they started to get treated differently from any other after-school club. And in fact, the Satanic Temple actually filed a lawsuit against the district because of all the obstacles they were seeing put up in their path. Let me share with you. This is what FFRF said. They helped with the lawsuit. The district has charged the Satanic Temple discriminatory rental and security fees, refused to adequately communicate, and generally treated members of the educational group as second-class citizens. The district's unconstitutional behavior has chilled the Satanic Temple's speech and substantially burdened its ability to exercise its religiously motivated practice of offering inclusive, welcoming religious clubs at public schools. So, like, what the hell did they do? Let me tell you what the school district did to block the Satanic Temple from meeting, okay? They kept their application for renting space pending for over a month. Like, just let it sit in the system. They refused to pass out permission slips for kids to join the club, saying we can't do that for outside groups, even though they had done that for the Christian club. So that was messed up. How's this? For the first meeting in January, the district charged the Satanic Temple over $2,000 as a special security fee because they needed to hire 10 police officers for 4 hours on the day of the meeting. Why? I don't know. They also charged the Satanists $250 for field lights, like stadium lights you would see at a football game on a Friday night. $250. Why? I don't know. They were meeting inside of a classroom. And if the Satanists didn't pay up, they could not meet. Now, the Good News Club, the Christian club, they never got any of these charges. So the Satanists paid the cost. And guess what happened after that first meeting? They said they only saw 3 police officers, not the 10 they paid for. And guess what? The field lights were not turned on. So that was a problem. This is also interesting. After weeks of not replying to the Satanic Temple's emails, in February, they were moved by the district to a new location, and the Satanists were told their after-school club would have to meet at 5 o'clock, which is not after school, and required them to have to put up daycare for like an hour so kids could attend. Good News Club didn't have to do that. The district charged the Satanists $30 per meeting insurance fees. Those were non-refundable, even though they were not having their meetings. And then when the Satanists asked for public records about all these conversations, the district told them they are not in possession of any public records documenting these fees, which made it impossible to figure out that the Christian clubs were not actually being charged anything for these meeting rooms, but the Satanists were being price gouged for the same requests. So, like, that's why they filed this lawsuit, right? Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to one other thing, which is they ended up having one other meeting. They held it before school, so they wouldn't have to deal with all these shenanigans. This is in March. They put up a flyer saying, hey, kids, let's have fun at before school Satan Club. And when they met that morning, let me show you what happened. This is according to the Satanic Temple. They said, they stuck us at the end of a hallway and they put up this white blanket covering the room. So like what? No one could see that they were meeting inside. They stuck a school official outside as like a bouncer or something. And by the way, they were meeting like in the band classroom, and students in band had to come in to grab their music stands where they were being stored, which is fine, except that interrupts the meeting. Like, this is what they did when they finally had to let the Satanists meet. Okay. So many things wrong with this. That's why they filed the lawsuit. And this week, I'm happy to announce there was a resolution here. Let me show you this right here. You could see notice of settlement. Finally. And it doesn't say anything other than both sides have reached a settlement. That's it. July 3rd. And again, early July, but it wasn't until this week that we got to find out exactly what the settlement was. And you're going to love this. Here's from FFRF this week. The board will pay over $15,000 to resolve the suit. That includes just about everything in attorney's fees for FFRF and their partners. The board will also pay $1 to the Satanic Temple, because this wasn't about money, and about $200 for various fees that the Satanic Temple paid in connection with the rentals that they were not refunded. I did ask the Satanic Temple, did you get paid back for having to hire the cops, the $2,000 for cops? They said yes. Did you get money back for the field lights, the $250 that you had to pay, even though that was worthless? They said yes. They have now gotten everything refunded. They have gotten all their lawyer fees taken care of. And look at this next paragraph. Further, the Shelby County Board of Education has agreed not to discriminate against the organization. And the school board's administration has promised not to hold any press conferences about this. So, like, if this is a settlement, theoretically, like, that's saying we compromised, but it's clearly the school district lost. Had this gone to trial, the school district must have known, oh shit, we're going to lose badly. And they're just like, let's just end it right here. Give them what they want. We're done. So that's where we're at as of this week. I did ask the Satanic Temple. First of all, I just want to make clear the district could have avoided all of this. All they had to do was treat the Satanists the same way they treat the Christians, but they seem incapable of doing that. I did ask the Satanic Temple, well, now that you got this compromise, are you going to actually have an after-school Satan club when the school year starts again? Are you going to put yourself through all this again? And they said, quote, oh, hell yes. Of course they did. But they did say the only way we're going to launch our after-school Satan club again is if the Christian Good News Club is still meeting. Because if the Christian club, for whatever reason, has folded or they're not meeting anymore, then the Satanists have no reason to keep doing what they're doing. So they said, yeah, they're planning to go back this year as soon as school opens up again, assuming the Christian club is still in place. And as far as I could tell, the district has not issued any public statement about the settlement. Like, they went from holding a press conference that they didn't need to hold so they could announce their stupidity to the world to finally shutting up now that the case is over. They don't even want to admit what they did. Whew. Okay, gonna pause there. What else? What other questions we got here before I get to the last story? Just looking through here. I enjoy the bonker stories. They're less depressing. The bonker story I'm talking about that I'll publish next week, I hope. One of them is bonkers depressing. The other one is just plain bonkers. It's not depressing or not. It's just weird. And I'll explain that next week. Seeing all the tweets about the satanic imagery in the Olympic ceremonies, it's hilarious. I will tell you, they are actually, NBC is playing the ceremonies as I'm doing this right now. So I saw hints about this, but I haven't actually seen the imagery. I'm very curious to see it after I'm done here. What else we got? Satanic is trending on Twitter right now. Lovely. I mean, JD Vance has to be happy that anything else is trending. What else we got here? I love the work the Satanic Temple does, and their coffee mugs are awesome. I'll take your word on the coffee mugs. I don't remember what's on them. I see some of you are ruining my stories before I get to the ending. How dare you? Thank you for this donation, Carla. On Right Wing Watch, they posted a video of Joel Webbin saying we shouldn't have a gynocracy because, women. This is part of the reason I kind of want Kamala Harris to pick Gretchen Whitmer as her VP, because it would just blow their minds in the worst way. They would not know what to do with themselves. Like, Republicans they're doing this already with Kamala Harris, where, like, they're trying to say racist things and they have to be told don't say racist things, and they're all saying like DEI instead. But imagine if there's just two women at the top of the ticket. Oh, the misogyny would come out so much. And like, maybe not from the senators, but like from state level Republicans who never get much scrutiny. They would just say the worst things and it would be hilarious. And they would turn off a bunch of swing district women voters. It would be so much fun. Anything else here? All right, I hope I didn't miss anything. No, do not. I hope this is a joke. Don't pick Liz Cheney. Don't pick Mitt Romney. Don't pick a Republican. Pick a good Democrat. I'll tell you what, Katie Porter would be really fun. You know who else we haven't heard from a lot? Stacey Abrams. I miss her. That would be fun too. Liz Why do liberals like Liz Cheney? She's right about like one thing and wrong about the other 99% of things. It was a joke. Thank you. Okay. My money's on Andy Beshear. Did I mention him earlier? I forgot if I mentioned him. He would be another really good pick. Governor from Kentucky, Democrat winning in a deeply red state. I don't know what the downside of that is, other than no, I don't know what the downside of that is, other than he doesn't necessarily have the name recognition out there, but like neither did Kamala Harris until this week. You know what I mean? To the non-political people. Again, this is what I love about the Veep stakes here. There's so many good Democratic leaders in the country. Wes Moore from Maryland is amazing. If you listen to that guy speak at all, and I'm assuming you will at the Democratic convention, like there's so much talent, there's so many good people, and because they're governors and you don't hear their names very often in the news, people don't realize how awesome they are, the sort of things they're doing in their states. It's really exciting to hear some of these people speak, and to see them get a wider audience. Seriously, Jasmine Crockett too. Like, there's so many good ones. There's so many good people out there. Okay, I'm going to jump to the last story, then I'll wrap this up. Give me 1 second here. I figured I would close on moderately good news. Go away, million tabs. Excellent. All right, here we go. Gallup released a survey this week, and it didn't get any headlines because there's a lot of news happening, but I want to show you this image. It has to do with creationism, evolution, and all of that. And it's basically, they do this every few years. What are Americans' beliefs about origins? And let me show you the question first. They've asked this since 1982. What is it that you believe about how humans came to be? You have three options. Option one, we evolved over millions of years, but God guided the process. Okay. Number two, we evolved over millions of years, but God had no role in the process. That is the correct answer. Or number three, this is the Ken Ham version. God created human beings pretty much in their present form at one time within the last 10,000 years or so. So if you think God just poofed us into existence 6,000 years ago, you're a young earth creationist, that's number three right there. So those are your options. And what was exciting this week is that Gallup released these results. Let me move my head out of this so you could see this. And if you can make sense of this, the very top number, 37% at the top, that represents young earth creationists. Okay? And the thing about that, the 37% up there, that is the highest number of the bunch, so that's scary. But young earth creationism is less popular today than it has ever been anywhere else that Gallup has asked this question. The closest, right over here, that was 38%, and now it's at 37%. So creationism is less popular today than it's ever been, but it's still really popular. And again, some of those people are like Ken Ham style fundamentalist Christians who actually believe this stuff. I genuinely think a lot of those people are just like, well, yeah, I think God created us. I don't know how old the earth is. 10,000 sounds right. Million seems crazy. I think a lot of them haven't really thought about it. But this is the young earth creationist crowd. The 34%, that represents the wishy-washy, I want to believe in evolution, but I also believe in God. And if I say evolution happened, but God's guiding it somehow, which makes no sense, this is the wishy-washy compromise that you could see it's pretty much been flat. Like, it's under 40%, above 30% the entire time, and that's where it is today still. But how about the no God, just evolution, millions of years? That has been steadily rising since 1982, and it is now at a record high 24%. So that's where we are today. More Americans than ever before believe in godless evolution over millions of years. The sad thing about it is we are talking about a quarter of the population. And a quarter of the population that, like, not all of them vote. I'll tell you what, those 37% of young earth creationists, they freaking come out to vote all the damn time. And that explains the entire Republican Party. But again, the side of godless evolution is growing, which, yay, that's something. I want to show you one more thing Gallup also published here, because they broke it down, like who's saying what here. And this is the other interesting thing. So again, we get back to 37% of people at the top here. 37% said young earth creationism. Right above my head, that's our 24% who are godless evolution over millions of years. This is the right answer. But look at this. Like, if you attend religion, if you attend a religious service every week, this is the top row right here, 61% of the weekly churchgoers believe in young earth creationism. And like none of them believe in godless evolution. What about the people who rarely go to church? You see where these 39% come from. Like, the plurality of the people who don't go to church accept evolution, right? They're less likely to believe in young earth creationism. Among conservatives, they love their fundamentalist Christianity. They love young earth creationism. Among liberals, 44% of liberals say, no, godless evolution. This is interesting too. Among Protestants, yeah, young earth creationism very popular. Not so much among Catholics. Catholics are pretty good about evolution because they're in that middle wishy-washy category. The 46% of Catholics say God-guided evolution is the way to go. And when you talk to religious nuns, yeah, we're all about the godless evolution right there. And then finally here, I'll remove myself. If you're not a college graduate, yeah, you're more likely to believe in young earth creationism. If you are a college graduate, you believe in evolution over millions of years, but either God guided in the middle or godless on the far right there. So interesting results all around. And I just wanted to make a couple last points there, which is, look, young earth creationism is so ridiculous that even Pat Robertson used to say, I don't think most Christians are stupid enough. That's a quote, to buy into young earth creationism. Gallup says this at the very end, because again, their job is not to explain why this is happening. It's just to show you what is happening. But this is what Gallup said in sharing these results. As Americans have become less religious over the past 4 decades, their beliefs about the origin of humans have shifted, with fewer now saying God created humans in their present form, and more saying humans evolved without God's help over millions of years. Yeah. Combined with the third of Americans who believe God-guided evolution, a majority of US adults thus believe humans evolved. But a different majority still think God plays some role in humankind's existence. So we have work to do. This age-old atheist debate is still looming large. I wanted to also show you, this is another Gallup poll that is a little older, but I think it's interesting in light of what we just saw. This is from July of 2022, but fewer people in the US now see the Bible as the literal word of God. And this is interesting. A record low 20% of Americans now say the Bible is the literal word of God, down from 24% last time the question was asked. So fewer people than ever before believe the Bible is literally true, which is fantastic news because it's not. And as you see more people saying, okay, I don't think the Bible's really true, of course, you're seeing a rise in godless evolution. You're seeing a decrease in young earth creationism. That's nice to see. And I think I just wanted to show you one last thing. The same thing is happening when it comes to how many people definitively believe in God. There was a survey. This is a nice graph. This is a group that did a survey. This is from the General Social Survey, which is a massive survey. And they asked people over every year, like, what percent of American adults say, I know God really exists and I have no doubts about it? Like, you are 100% certain God exists. And when they started doing the polling on this in 1990, I think it goes back to like 1950. That number was close to like 100%. Everyone believed in God. They were sure of it. But in the past several years, you could see it's gone like, you could see the x-axis now. Since 1990, it's like 2/3 of the country are definitively sure God exists. But the thing that was interesting about this chart, look right above my head. In 2021, for the first time, the people who are absolutely sure of God's existence dipped below 50% for the first time ever. There's hope, right? People are willing to entertain doubts about God. So, like, the age-old argument of does God exist, the thing that like old school atheists used to fight about online, that's still very much effective. Like, all those debates had a toll on people. It took a toll on people. People started accepting a lot of those arguments. It seems like now a lot of the atheist arguments have shifted to politics and issues, but it seems like more people are willing to entertain that atheists might have a point on some of these things. It's not as much as many people as I would like, but that shift is slowly happening. And usually the way you see that shift get expedited or accelerated is when there's some political issue that forces people to take a side and confront the issue head on. And it's been a while since I've seen like intelligent design or creationism really in the news. The closest I could find, like in 2023, I talked about it on this live stream. West Virginia lawmakers last year introduced a law allowing science teachers to bring intelligent design into the classroom. And this year, they passed that law, but they watered it down so much that it's almost meaningless. But honestly, that's a rare thing because most of the time, no one's talking about creationism in the classroom or intelligent design in the classroom anymore. So it seems like on the evolution issue, it'll take a while for some people to get with it, but we've done a nice job of getting that into people's heads that there's nothing wrong with believing, accepting evolution, and that God had no role in the process. All right, I'm going to stop there. I'm just going to take one last look at any of these comments. What did I miss? Last chance to get anything in here. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, until 100% of scientists are on the no God train, we still have work to do. That sounds about right. I like that. You know what? I wonder how the poll was done. If by phone, it probably has age bias. Younger people are probably in the no God category. It's a fair question. I will say places like Gallup, places like the Pew Research Center, they are aware of those biases. And I'm pretty sure they take all that into account when putting this stuff together. So I didn't look at the methodology for the Gallup poll I just showed you, but you're raising the right questions, but they're also pretty transparent about how they do it. So if you go to their website, you could find the methodology. Anything else here? All right. I think I caught everything. Thanks so much for joining me on this live stream. As always, you could support me by going to patreon.com/Hemant. Next week, Den will be back. He'll make all this go much more smoothly. Have a wonderful weekend. If you're not registered to vote, go register to vote before it's too late. And I'll see you next Friday night. Have a good one, everybody.